Hello everyone! Today I would like to share with you my method of building this dragon or wyvern in my build. I just love adding fantasy creatures to my builds. I think it adds so much to them and I would love to share this with you. I use no commands in this tutorial, so any version of Minecraft that you are using is fine. Let's get started. To start, I'm going to be marking out some wireframing. It's a very important step to get your scale right. If you're building your dragon or wyvern into another build, then you need to make sure that you're scaling this with the build and marking out the interactions with the build. For example, if it's crushing something with its foot or breathing fire onto it, it's a good idea to mark that in so that you get it correct. At this stage, I've got a top line marking out the top and back of my dragon, and then a bottom line marking out the belly. At this stage, it's super easy to see the general shape that I'm going to have with my dragon, and this definitely will give me a good idea of how I'm going to be going. I also have the shoulders and hips marked in. Speaking of shoulders and hips, I'm now going to be adding a circle in this area. This will give me a good guiding line for the thickness of my dragon and help me not to build it too thin. Then I'm going to start thinking about more bones, this time wing bones. Bones need to be built straight, otherwise they're going to look broken. For the wing bones, I'm going with slightly curvy bones. You have an option though, you could go with bones that are jointed. This is all based on personal preference. After all, these are fantasy creatures, so you build them how you want them. Once my wings are shaping up, it's time to move down to the hips, where I add another circle once again and then build in the leg bones, making sure to mark in the knee, the ankle bone, and roughly where the foot is going to be. For the legs, I think it's particularly important to use a reference image. If I didn't use a reference image, I would almost never get my legs in the right structure. I just think it's so difficult to build them in and make them look semi-realistic. But once the shape is marked in, our wireframing is pretty much complete. So at this stage, it's a good idea to correct any mistakes you might have. Is your tail too short, too long? Are your feet too long? Are your wings too big? Are they too floppy? Are they the right shape? Is your head going to be the right size? Is your dragon way too big for the environment? Is your dragon way too small for the environment? Fix it all now, before you put in the time and add a lot more details. Speaking of more details, it's time to get some more advanced wireframing in. I'm adding more guiding circles all the way down my body. This will help me a lot when I'm adding in the final shapes. Then I move up to the head. When I'm doing a head, I like to build it based off a sphere. If you want a more in-depth tutorial on heads, I will link that in the description or in the little corner. Once my sphere is in place, we simply just do a top and bottom jaw with an eye socket in them. Once I'm happy with the shape on one side, I just mirror it over on the other side. I want the face to be fairly symmetrical, so I try to make them match as best as possible. Now that the shape is in place, we just move on to the body. Now all we're doing it here is basically just coloring in. I'm using my lapis blocks to color in the lines that I put in that were guiding me. This makes this process super smooth and easy, and I don't have to worry about any shape as I'm doing this, because I know that I liked the shape of my wireframing, and therefore once it's filled in, I should theoretically like the shape of my wyvern or dragon. Putting in some bulk on one side to make sure that everything's looking alright, and once I'm semi-happy with it, I flip over to the other side to get a good look at what's going on over there and start filling that in. Once I'm happy with both sides, I can then zoom out, get a good look around at what's going on, make sure I'm happy with all of the shapes and that they're all finalized, and then I can move on to the next section. In my case, I'm going to be moving on to the wings because I like procrastinating the feet. That's just me. For the wings, I first have to decide what color I'm going to go with. I experiment with a couple, but end up with going with this gray, which I quite like the contrast of it with the blue. For the wings, it takes a little bit of trial and error, but you're basically just connecting your lines together with some membrane-like shapes. You don't want the lines to be too straight, so you try to add some curves to them in places to make it look like it's flowing. The part where the wing connects to the body is the hardest part. I like using reference images for this too to get a good idea of where it should connect on my wyvern or dragon. I like connecting it just before the hips, so it doesn't quite get there. Like, it just gets to the smallest part of the dragon's waist and then it stops. Once one side is done and I'm happy with that, I can then go over to the other side and continue over there. Once I have my curves all in place, you can tell what I do is I curve out the bottom by breaking some of those blocks and making the wings look a lot more curvy and flowy. Once I'm happy with the wing shape, it's time to move back and do the feet. I find the feet of organics to always be the most challenging. They are so tiny and you're not given very many blocks to work with here. You don't want your feet to look super large, but you don't want them to look blocky and weird either, so it takes a little bit of experimenting. My advice is to just be really patient and work really hard to get the shape that you're happy with. After a little bit of struggle, I eventually decide on a shape that I like. I go with 3 claws instead of 4 because this fits better on my dragon's foot and I think it ends up looking more realistic. Once that's done, my dragon's shape is officially complete. Now it's time to add in the texturing and the details. The first step of this is figuring out my colors. The texturing stage is going to take quite a lot of time because I need to recolor the entire back of the dragon. The larger your dragon or wyvern is, the longer this is going to take, so get your colors right early on. The first thing I texture out is the head. This gives me a good idea early on if these textures are going to work together or not because a lot of them are featured here in the head. I put the lighter colors around the eyes and add some horns to my eyes. And then some teeth in my mouth, of course. This is where it's time for you to get creative. I don't want you to follow this tutorial block by block. It's just my method of building the dragon. Everyone has different methods and you can use this method on any size dragon or wyvern that you are building. Doesn't matter. I recommend customizing it as much as possible for your own worlds. I'm going to go with a lighter blue back on my dragon, so I'm surrounding my spikes in the glazed terracotta and then using concrete and wool to get the nice lighter color all along my dragon's back. Kinda looks like he has racing stripes going up his side. Then on the dragon's arms, I fill those in with ice and I put a little bit of light gray along the wings to make them look a little bit more worn. Then I simply have to continue this pattern all the way down the dragon's back. At this time, it's fairly easy to do. It's not challenging, just a little bit time-consuming. Once I'm happy with all of my colors on both the bottom and top side of the dragon, I can officially call the dragon complete. I think it makes a good addition to my build, and I'm actually going to put it into my Spruce Village build. Here it is, the final result of my wyvern. I hope you guys enjoyed this and find this technique useful for your own builds. Remember, this is fully customizable. It's just the technique that I use. You can make larger or smaller dragons with this. It really doesn't matter. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!